68. The Voluntary Beggar. When Zarathustra had left the ugliest man, he was chilled and felt lonesome. For much coldness and lonesomeness came over his spirit, so that even his limbs became colder thereby. When, however, he wandered on and on, uphill and down, at times past green meadows, though also sometimes over wild stony couches, where formerly perhaps an impatient brook had made its bed, then he turned all at once warmer and heartier again.
The meeting with the ugliest man, who was a manifestation of the part of humanity that killed God out of wretchedness, made Zarathustra feel sick. But now he reached a place that makes him feel better.
"What hath happened unto me?" he asked himself. "Something warm and living quickeneth me. It must be in the neighbourhood. Already am I less alone. Unconscious companions and brethren rove around me. Their warm breath toucheth my soul."
What cheered him up is not the scenery. There are living beings in this place, whose presence he can feel, who represent something more positive than what he met so far. He can't see them yet, but he knows they are there.
When, however, he spied about and sought for the comforters of his lonesomeness, behold, there were kine there standing together on an eminence, whose proximity and smell had warmed his heart. The kine, however, seemed to listen eagerly to a speaker, and took no heed of him who approached. When, however, Zarathustra was quite nigh unto them, then did he hear plainly that a human voice spake in the midst of the kine, and apparently all of them had turned their heads towards the speaker.
It's a herd of cows. But Zarathustra didn't have many kind words to say about cows, so it can't be them that he felt. He realizes that they are all listening to someone in the middle of the herd.
Then ran Zarathustra up speedily and drove the animals aside, for he feared that someone had here met with harm, which the pity of the kine would hardly be able to relieve. But in this he was deceived, for behold, there sat a man on the ground who seemed to be persuading the animals to have no fear of him, a peaceable man and preacher on the mount, out of whose eyes kindness itself preached. "What dost thou seek here?" called out Zarathustra in astonishment.
It is yet another solitary man, whose kind words and demeanor remind Zarathustra of Jesus. Why is he talking to cows?
"What do I here seek?" answered he. "The same that thou seekest, thou mischief-maker, that is to say, happiness upon earth. To that end, however, I would fain learn of these kine, for I tell thee that I have already talked half a morning unto them, and just now were they about to give me their answer. Why dost thou disturb them? Except we be converted and become as kine, we shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven, for we ought to learn from them one thing, ruminating."
Without looking up, the man explains that he seeks what every human seeks, happiness upon earth. He feels that to achieve happiness, mankind must learn to ruminate, and for that end he came to the cows, to learn their ways. We've heard something similar once before, in the academic chairs of virtue. Then Zarathustra listened to a lecture by a wise man, who preached that self-contentment is the goal we should aspire to. He was against anything that could disturb the mind, and for ruminating the things that make you feel safe and warm. This man, it seems, believes in something similar.
"And verily, although a man should gain the whole world, and yet not learn one thing, ruminating, what would it profit him? He would not be rid of his affliction. His great affliction, that, however, is at present called disgust. Who hath not, at present, his heart, his mouth, and his eyes full of disgust? Thou also, but behold these kine."
Like the other people Zarathustra met, this man also realizes that there is a crisis in the human spirit. He believes that all humans feel disgust in themselves and their human nature, and the only way to overcome this disgust is to learn to ruminate good thoughts. Since he believes this problem afflicts all humanity, he includes his companion in it as well, without even bothering to check out whom he is talking to.
Thus spake the preacher on the mount, and turned then his own look towards Zarathustra, for hitherto it had rested lovingly on the kine. Then, however, he put on a different expression. "Who is this with whom I talk?" he exclaimed, frightened, and sprang up from the ground. This is the man without disgust. This is Zarathustra himself, the surmounter of the great disgust. This is the eye, this is the mouth, this is the heart of Zarathustra himself. And whilst he thus spake, he kissed with o'erflowing eyes the hands of him with whom he spake, and behaved altogether like one to whom a precious gift and jewel hath fallen unawares from heaven. The kine, however, gazed at it all and wondered.
Finally turning his gaze to look at his companion, the man realizes he is talking to the one man who has overcome the disgust, a man that he idolizes. He showers adulation on Zarathustra, but we should note that the latter's way of overcoming the disgust had nothing to do with ruminating, so the man apparently took the wrong lessons from him.
"Speak not of me, thou strange one, thou amiable one," said Zarathustra, and restrained his affection. "Speak to me firstly of thyself. Art thou not the voluntary beggar who once cast away great riches, who was ashamed of his riches and of the rich, and fled to the poorest, to bestow upon them his abundance and his heart? But they received him not. But they received me not, said the voluntary beggar. Thou knowest it, forsooth. So I went at last to the animals, and to those kine."
Zarathustra feels affection to this man, probably because he respects the self-disgust that he feels. He notes that the man is familiar to him, and is someone famous for giving up on his riches to go live among the poor. But the poor, apparently, did not accept him, so now he seeks the company of cows.
"Then learnest thou," interrupted Zarathustra, "how much harder it is to give properly than to take properly, and that bestowing well is an art, the last, subtlest master art of kindness. "Especially nowadays," answered the voluntary beggar. "At present, that is to say, when everything low hath become rebellious and exclusive and haughty in its manner, in the manner of the populace."
Another reason he feels affection to him is that this man tried to act according to the bestowing virtue, which Zarathustra eulogized, except he didn't know exactly how to do it. The man agrees, and notes that today it is harder to give to people, since the values of the rabble have taken over, and the rabble rejects everything fine that is offered to it.
"For the hour hath come, thou knowest it, forsooth, for the great, evil, long, slow mob and slave insurrection, it extendeth and extendeth. Now doth it provoke the lower classes, all benevolence and petty giving, and the over-rich may be on their guard. Whoever at present drip like bulgy bottles out of all too small necks, of such bottles at present one willingly breaketh the necks. Wanton avidity, bilious envy, careworn revenge, populous pride, all these struck mine eye. It is no longer true that the poor are blessed. The kingdom of heaven, however, is with the kine."
Jesus said that the poor are blessed because they don't develop the vices that come with wealth and power. This, says the man, is no longer true. The rabble has taken over, imposing its slave morality, and now it has power over the rich. They don't want to receive anything from the rich. They don't want to have good things. All they want is to take revenge on them.
"And why is it not with the rich?" asked Zarathustra temptingly, while he kept back the kine which sniffed familiarly at the peaceful one. "Why dost thou tempt me?" answered the other. "Thou knowest it thyself better even than I. What was it drove me to the poorest, O Zarathustra? Was it not my disgust at the richest? At the culprits of riches, with cold eyes and rank thoughts, who pick up profit out of all kinds of rubbish, at this rabble that stinketh to heaven."
Zarathustra likes what he hears, but he wants to test the man further, so he asks him about the rich. Don't they, at least, still have good virtues? The man answers that the rich have become rabble as well. They are not looking to become rich in spirit, but only to accumulate meaningless material things. This is why he left their company in the first place, and thought the poor would be better, but soon realized his mistake.
At this gilded, falsified populace, whose fathers were pickpockets or carrion crows or rag-pickers, with wives compliant, lewd, and forgetful, for they are all of them not far different from harlots. Populace above, populace below, What are poor and rich at present? That distinction did I unlearn. Then did I flee away further and ever further until I came to those kine.
The rich of today, the capitalists, come from lowly origins anyway. They did not receive a noble education, but became rich through finding ways to make money out of their traditionally illicit practices, while keeping the character of their ancestors. Thus, both the poor and the rich are now rabble.
Thus spake the peaceful one, and puffed himself and perspired with his words, so that the kine wondered anew. Zarathustra, however, kept looking into his face with a smile. All the time the man talked so severely, and shook silently his head. Thou doest violence to thyself, thou preacher on the mount, when thou usest such severe words. For such severity neither thy mouth nor thine eye have been given thee. Nor, methinketh, hath thy stomach either. Unto it all such rage and hatred and foaming over is repugnant. Thy stomach wanteth softer things. Thou art not a butcher. Rather seemest thou to me a plant-eater and a root-man. Perhaps thou grindest corn. Certainly, however, thou art averse to fleshly joys, and thou lovest honey.
Against his own teachings, the man allowed himself to become upset. It scared away the cows, but won over Zarathustra. But he knows that this man, although he sees the truth about the values of today, is not a heroic character who can follow in his footsteps. He is gentle and amiable by nature, and shouldn't upset himself so.
Thou hast divined me well, answered the voluntary beggar with lightened heart. I love honey. I also grind corn, for I have sought out what tasteth sweetly and maketh pure breath. Also what requireth a long time, a day's work and a mouth's work for gentle idlers and sluggards. Furthest, to be sure, have those kine carried it. They have devised ruminating and lying in the sun. They also abstain from all heavy thoughts which inflate the heart.
The man calms down, and affirms Zarathustra's characterization of his nature.
Well, said Zarathustra, thou shouldst also see mine animals, mine eagle and my serpent. Their like do not at present exist on earth. Behold, thither leadeth the way to my cave. Be tonight its guest, and talk to mine animals of the happiness of animals. Until I myself come home, for now a cry of distress calleth me hastily away from thee. Also, shouldst thou find new honey with me, ice-cold, golden-comb honey, eat it.
Zarathustra believes that if this man prefers to talk to animals, it would do better for him to speak to his animals than to speak with cows. Although the man is not the heroic type, he still believes he can benefit from his wisdom and pride. So he invites him, too, to his cave.
Now, however, take leave at once of thy kind, thou strange one, thou amiable one, though it be hard for thee, for they are thy warmest friends and preceptors. One excepted whom I hold still dearer, answered the voluntary beggar. Thou thyself art good, O Zarathustra, and better even than a cow. Away, away with thee, thou evil flatterer, cried Zarathustra mischievously. Why dost thou spoil me with such praise and flattery, honey? Away, away from me, cried he once more, and heaved his stick at the fond beggar, who, however, ran nimbly away.
The man accepts, and points out that there is still one being in this world who is better than cows, and that's Zarathustra himself. These words of adulation remind Zarathustra that although he feels affection to this man, he is still not the kind of man he'd like to associate with. So he shoos him away, and carries on.